Hi, Lou here, and I'm going to talk about something that is more or less elementary to game design, but you may be somebody who's just starting out, and so it may be useful to you. I'm going to talk about escaping the audience and how that's really not possible if you want to be a good game designer. You can't escape the audience unless the audience is just one person, yourself. If you're designing for yourself or designing for yourself and your friends, then you have a different situation than a professional game designer who is designing for a target audience. A professional game designer can ignore that audience, but the game is likely to suffer. Or he can use feedback from that audience or from people representative of that audience, in other words, through playtesting, to make that game better for that audience, but not necessarily for some other audience. There's no such thing as a perfect game. There are games that many people love that I despise and think are junk, and vice versa. There are probably games of mine that people despise and think are junk, yet other people like them a lot. That's the way it goes. It's like music. There are different tastes and you get different results. So commercial designers need to have a target audience in mind. When they design the game, they may end up designing it for a different audience than they originally intended, but as long as they're aware of that, then that's all right. Because you're designing for another audience, you should not be designing for yourself unless you are typical of that audience. Now we can take the example of the original video game Doom. The guys designed it for themselves, but it turned out that they were typical of a very large audience, and so it was very successful. But they were lucky. That's what that came down to. Now, self-indulgence is a sin for a commercial designer, and this is a form of self-indulgence, designing for yourself instead of designing for your audience. It's normal for anyone designing a game for themselves. That's fine. Self-indulge away because it's your game and you're only designing for you. But you can't do that if you want to sell that game to an audience in some way. Thanks for listening.